Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now I'll call to order this regular joint meeting of the Minnehaha County and Dell Rapids Planning Commissions, and I will begin with a few introductory comments. The two planning commissions work together on land use and zoning matters within the rural areas surrounding the city. This area is displayed on the screen. When this joint hearing is completed, the joint Dell Rapids and County Planning Commission will adjourn and the next regular business meeting will begin to consider items beyond the joint zoning jurisdiction with Dell Rapids. Any final action taken on the conditional use permit applications tonight will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by Monday, February 3rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission and City Council for a joint hearing on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at or after 9 a.m. The affected parties will be notified of the meeting date, and meetings of the County Commission and Dell Rapids City Council are held in this same room. Action taken on the zoning text amendment during the public hearing tonight is a recommendation that will be forwarded to the County Commission and City Council for another public hearing on Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at or after 9 a.m. Meetings of the County Commission and Dell Rapids City Council are held in this same room. First on the agenda is public input. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? At this time, the Planning Commission will consider the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are perceived to be non-controversial and meet all of the requirements of the codes and regulations. The consent agenda will be acted on in one motion with no public hearing on the items unless a member of the public, the commission, or staff requests the item be removed from the consent agenda. Next, I'll read each item on the consent agenda and ask if there are any issues or comments from the Planning Commission or the audience. And if any member of the Planning Commission or the audience would like to be heard on this item, please raise your hand and the item will be moved to the regular agenda to allow you to address the Commission later in the meeting. Any items remaining on the consent agenda will be approved by the Planning Commission with the conditions recommended by staff. Item number 1 on the consent agenda is approval of the minutes of the September 25th, 2023 meeting. Item number 2 is zoning text amendment 25-01 to amend the 2001 revised joint zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the City of Dell Rapids to add vacation home short-term rental regulations. Is anyone from the staff or the commission or the audience wish to be heard on this item? Item number 3 is zoning text amendment 25-02 to amend the 2001 revised joint zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the City of Dell Rapids to add intermodal shipping container regulation. Anyone from the commission, staff, or audience wish to be heard on this item? Item number 4 is zoning text amendment 25-03 to amend the 2001 revised joint zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the City of Dell Rapids to add long-term lease or rental regulations. Anyone from staff, commission, or audience wish to be heard on this item? We have a new commissioner, which is Cindy Heiberger, and she has not been here for the approval of the minutes, so she will have to abstain from voting. So I have item 1, 2, 3, and 4, commissioners.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I have a motion and second to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes on the county side.
Motion to approve.
Dell,
Second.
you second it? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move on to the regular agenda. Conditional use permit 25-02 to allow outdoor industrial storage on the properties legally described as Lot 11E of Highway 77. There is an exception of the North 4 acres and except the lots A, B, E, F, G, and except part of Tract 1, Wilburg Addition, and of exceptions, Section 16 and part of Outlot lying east of Highway. And there's another exception of Wilburg's Addition and H2, end of exception. Section 21, all in Township 104 North, Range 49 West, Dell Rapids Township. Petitioner is Roberta Letman. Property owner is R.J. Wilburg LLC, and it's located at 24681 Garfield Avenue. Kevin?
Good evening. I am Kevin Hookman from the County Planning Department. Yes, this is conditional use permit number 2502 to allow outdoor industrial storage. The outdoor industrial storage does require a conditional use permit within the I-1 industrial zoning district. Staff received a complaint that there's junk vehicles and trailers being stored on the property. When I visited the site, I saw that to be true and sent the property owner notice. Shortly after the notice was received, they came in to apply for the permit. The subject property is located south of Dell Rapids. I'll pull up the map. Between South Dakota Highway 115 and Garfield Avenue. The property was formerly an airstrip, and that airstrip is currently hard surface, and that's the primary area where storage is going to be kept. The petitioner has submitted several site plans for the area, but no narrative was submitted with the application. Parking spaces are rented out for campers, trailers, and vehicles. And you'll see on the east side of the road there, there is a small development of residential houses there. Primary access to the property is off of South Dakota Highway 115. There is a address for the general property based off of Garfield Avenue, and that would be for a small shed on that side of the road. However, the primary driveway would be off of the state highway. There is a number posted as 24670 on the side of the building. There's no blue address sign for the property, and that will be a requirement of approval to post a blue county address sign for the property. So for every conditional use permit, there is criteria to be reviewed, and I'll go through each one of the criteria. Number one, the effect upon the use and enjoyment of the other property in the surrounding area for uses already permitted and upon property values within the surrounding area. The property is located in a rural service area, which is mostly industrial land uses. There are residential acreages, as I mentioned, on either side of the development, on the east side and the west. Outdoor storage is relatively low land use or low impact land use for industrial land uses. Traffic will be accommodated since it's being accessed from the highway, the existing state highway. The site will use the existing hard surface area of the airstrip. Number two, the effect upon the normal and orderly development and improvement in the surrounding vacant properties used for predominant use in the area. This is located within an active industrial park that is still developing. Outdoor storage like this, it's being low impact, will preserve most of the property by limiting improvements on the property before the likely future development into smaller parcels into the city of Dell Rapids. Since this is so close to the city, planning staff from Dell Rapids is requesting a pre-annexation agreement for the property. Number three, utility access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities are provided. As I mentioned, access off of South Dakota Highway 115. There's no plans for changing the drainage from the current site. The property owner will be responsible for extending any utilities to like electricity once it's needed for the site. Number four, off-street parking and loading requirements are met. At this time, no additional parking will be required for the property, since it is for outdoor storage. Number 5, the measures are taken to control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting, inclusive of lighted signs, so that none of these will constitute a nuisance. Outdoor storage should not create offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, or vibration. No lighting in the storage areas should be able to spill off to the property, so if any new lighting should be cut off. The complaint that was received by staff was regarding the unsightly appearance of items on the property. This could be addressed by something like a screen. It is not included in the staff report, but has been brought up to staff as an option for addressing screening of the items in the property. And I'll go through that a little bit in the PowerPoint. And number 6, health, safety, and general welfare of the public in the comprehensive plan. Outdoor storage of vehicles, campers, and trailers is generally expected in low impact for neighboring properties in an industrial zoning district. It should have little impact to the health, safety, and general welfare of the area. It also is benefit the city of Dell Rapids with the pre-annexation agreement for the property. And staff does recommend approval of this with 10 conditions, and I will at least highlight condition number 3, that all vehicles, campers, and trailers stored on the property shall be fully operational and intact. But I'll bring through a few of the staff photos there. I did visit the site and took several photos of the property. This would be to the far south of the property. And then this would be kind of the beginning of the outdoor storage there with the pickup on the left, and then you got the bus and the semi-trailer there. Going a little further up the road. Oops, I'm going backwards. Going a little further up the road, you can see that the amount of stuff being stored starts to kind of get more there. And this would be looking from towards the main building that they enter into the property. And then this is the main building from the state highway there. Just for reference, this is a nearby outdoor storage area that does have a fence around it. And they do have the other buildings there that are constructed. It was a part of a whole project to include indoor storage and outdoor storage, and that has been developing over the last couple of years. So I'll bring this back to the map, I think. I'll be here for any questions, I guess. Staff is recommending approval.
Any questions for him? Go ahead.
Yeah, question. I read both the I-1 or I-1 light industrial and then the commercial district, and talked about buildings with no outdoor storage. Yet, I mean, this is going to be the primary use of this is outdoor storage. And I don't see anything that talks about outdoor storage for rental and stuff like that. I'm just wondering if you could address that.
Okay, so the no outdoor storage is listed as a permitted special use in one of the items. So you'd have an industrial building with no outdoor storage, and if there's no outdoor storage, you can build that building. Since they are requesting outdoor storage, it goes beyond the permitted special use and requires a conditional use permit. That's why we're here, I guess.
I guess maybe I missed it, but even in the conditional use, it talks about no outdoor storage. So that's where I was curious.
So as a permitted special use, if not all the requirements are met, it would go through this process. Otherwise, if all the requirements are met, then we would just be able to permit it. If they wanted to put up a 10,000 square foot building on the property, everything was contained inside the building, we could permit that. But now that there's outdoor storage, we would have to go through the conditional use permit.
Any other questions for him?
Sorry, I have another one.
Go
question. You talked about that it has to be on the surfacing, and as the picture showed in one person that it's questionable that it's hard surfacing. I guess the question about that, and then the second question is that, so all of the grass buffer between Garfield and the runway, no storage can be, or no equipment, campers, vehicles can be put on that grass?
That'd be correct. So it's kind of hard to zoom in, but you can see where the pavement is right here. There are some pictures that were presented in the PowerPoint that I sent out to everybody earlier today, and I'm sure that we brought up by one of the neighbors tonight, because I have it available tonight, that shows some campers and stuff right here that are not located on the hard surface. So yes, these campers will have to move onto the hard surfaced area that's here. There's also ag equipment right here that's being stored, and since we're bringing that up, that ag equipment has been stored there for many, many, many years, and so it's going to be like ag spray tanks, tractor implements like tillers and discs. I would actually entertain if there was going to be anything that says that we could maybe change that to maintain the ag equipment to be able to stay in that location there somehow. Because it has been there historically as part of the airstrip even.
I have a question as far as policing what goes on there. Who has responsibility for that? Is that the county? Does it have to come from the neighbors who complain to the county, and then the county sends a letter to the owner, and if the owner doesn't do anything, then what's the process there?
Sure. Largely speaking, it is up to the neighbors to kind of help keep they're the closest eye to the property. They're the best able to see things weekends and nights. If they do find something, they'd contact us, and there is the condition number 9 that the Planning and Zoning Department reserves the right to enter and inspect the site at any time to ensure that the conditions are being met. So we would just say, hey, we want to be on the property at this time, and we can enter in and make sure that everything's settled. If we find that things are not complete, it goes for a recall hearing. So we would send the applicant a letter saying you have to correct these, or we're going to come to a recall hearing where it would be heard in front of you guys again.
Okay. I have another question. I think you visited the site.
Yep.
I didn't have time to drive out past there. One of the things I saw in here is maybe recommending a fence where you obstruct the view and so on. What is the elevation of Garfield compared to the airstrip? Because I know on some of our other conditional use permits that in the city, we require an obstructing fence or whatever. Would a fence be able to obstruct the view of that, or would they be looking from the road down onto it and the fence basically would do nothing?
It's a little bit of both. So like, as you can see right here, towards the south end of where the houses are, the road is lower than that runway. But when you go further up the road, there are points where the road is a little higher and kind of looking down towards that runway, like right here. So it would change a little bit on the view. I mentioned with the screening, I did prepare a few slides of kind of possible screening locations. So we could screen like right up close to the property. I'm not sure if that would be the best way to go about it. I wonder if the best place to screen would actually be right up close to where they're storing stuff. So that way, whether you're looking down or you're looking up, it may not cover the height of like a bus, but it should cover like a 6-foot or an 8-foot tall fence, which should be able to cover most vehicles.
Sure. What is the elevation where those houses are located? Do you know?
I guess.
And maybe that's something we'll have
Sure.
to ask anyone who gets up to speak about it.
Sure.
Any other questions for him? Okay, is the petitioner here? Please step forward, state your name and address.
You have questions for me, or you want to
Yes.
state?
You want to state your name and address, sir?
Pardon?
State your name and address.
Gary Lutman. This is my wife, Roberta.
And your address is?
We're from, and we live in the Flander area. We live about 30 miles north of Dell Rapids. This historically is property of her family. That's how we ended up with it. Her dad was a pilot. That's why we have an airstrip. Long, narrow, oddly shaped piece of property, which is, we're trying to do the best we can with it.
Anyone have any questions for him?
Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Joe.
Just, sir, do you have any issues with complying with the 10 conditions that are placed? Have you had a good conversation with staff about those and find that those will be sufficient for you to comply with?
Yeah, we're willing to comply with that. We had some discussions with Kevin on some of that. And earlier, he mentioned some unsightly items that were there, and since that time, they're gone. We've taken that to heart. We don't want that kind of stuff either. Sometimes when you get a renter, you don't know what's gonna show up, and that's on us to determine what they're gonna bring. And sometimes they bring something, and then they take that away and bring something else that's worse. So we're doing the best to stay on top of that.
Anyone else have any questions? Go ahead.
Has anyone that's had concerns about this come and spoke to you, reached out to you and talked to you at all?
Of who?
Anyone that had concerns about the airstrip?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Okay,
Madam
anyone
Chair,
else? Joe?
one more. Do you have any preference, or would you be open to an additional condition that took into account some kind of screening, fencing? And if so, do you have a preference? I think Kevin displayed two different options, whether it's at the edge of the property or right along the line of vehicles. Did you have any preference within that?
We'd be reluctant to do that. We don't make a lot of money on this deal. We don't charge a lot of money for somebody to rent it, so it wouldn't be very financially feasible for us to put up a screen. And I have no idea what it would cost, but we'd be a little reluctant to do that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Even partial screening, not maybe screening the whole area, but the residential area, would that be an issue for you?
We could, well, of course.
Well, I understand.
You know, I guess we would look into that to see what's acceptable for screening and how much it would cost. If we like to keep halfway decent looking campers and trailers and stuff like that, vehicles there, anything that runs, no flat tires and things like that, if possible. If none of those campers are on that runway, the people along Garfield would see the back of those buildings along 115, which is probably more unsightly than those campers. I guess it's a matter of opinion. But should they screen then too?
I think you had said the abandoned vehicles or whatever, that's all been taken away. Does that include the bus? I think those buses are inoperable.
That bus is inoperable. It was sold by Prairie Coach, which you probably know that story.
I think after when that sale happened,
They couldn't get it started, and they needed a place to put it. So they pulled it onto our property, and they paid to leave it there. Our understanding was that they would, the owners are from Texas. Our understanding was that they would come up and get the bus operable and take it home with them, but thus far they haven't. So we don't consider it a long-term thing, but it's getting longer than we would like to see it be there, yes.
okay.
Anyone else have any questions for him? Thank you. Anyone from the audience care to address this item? Please step forward, state your name and address. You have 5 minutes.
Jeff Egan. I live in Dell Rapids, 509 Sunset Drive. I have the tree service building right along this piece of property you're talking about. My concern is the fact that I feel that it will depreciate the value of our properties. Mine and Dave Raves has a fence along the backside of it, 6 foot, which helps the clutter that's back there. I don't know, he made a statement about, well, you should look at some of the buildings that, the body shop, which is 2, 3 down from me, there are some vehicles out there, but it's a business too. But for the most part, all of the buildings there are pretty well kept up. I'm just concerned about declining the property value, and that's basically why I'm here. I know if I did have a home alongside of Garfield there, I would be concerned of that, because today I caught, I didn't catch it, I saw 2 guys out there jump starting an old pickup and getting rid of that, but there is more clutter back there than, I don't like seeing it, so anyways. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience care to address this item? Please state your name and address.
Hi, my name is Nicholas Buchholz. I live at 24706 South Garfield. I'm the last house of the Fegan addition on the south side. I have been looking at that bus for a year and a half out my picture window. I continually unwrap tarps from trees in my yard that have been blown. We get a strong northwest wind. There are trailers that are tarped along there. That pickup truck that they were talking about was a camper trailer that sat on pallets out there for months on end. It is unsightly, and not only for the people that live there, but you drive into Dell Rapids, that's from Sioux Falls, that's the first thing you see is, welcome to Dell Rapids, here's a parking lot. And it's been concerning, and I was one of the people that complained to the county about that whole area. As you drive along there, and you were talking, Virgil, about, excuse me, Mr. Klein, about the how that road slopes. A fence isn't going to do anything, because Zach's house is up high, so are the Albertses, so they look down on that entire runway. And a 6-8 foot fence, and with a 16-foot high bus, all you're gonna see is that garbage. And I know it probably attracts animals. To me, it's a private nuisance. And so I am completely against any variance on this. And the fact that they were storing stuff there when this wasn't zoned for this at all for years now should indicate how much compliance the owners have had. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else care to address this item?
I actually have letters of authorization from
Will
3
you please
separate.
state your name and address,
Yep,
sir?
Scott Richardson, 24744 South Garfield Avenue. I actually have letters of authorizations to represent 3 separate entities, so I don't know if I can get a little bit of grace on the time or not, but I'm gonna read a document. So, my name is Scott Richardson. I'm speaking on behalf of my parents, Dan and Kathy Richardson, who reside at 24744 South Garfield Avenue, and Roger Volt of 2473 475th Avenue, who are both out of town. And actually, my parents' place is on the southern part of where the conditional use permit is being applied for. They've built both of those houses there, the one across the street, and also what used to be the bus depot. And we've kind of developed that whole area. So, let's see. So I also have a vested interest in my parents' property, as I'm the future owner. The next couple months, I'll take over ownership of that. I've been asked to speak on their behalf in stark opposition to the submitted conditional use permit 2502. As the past director of planning and zoning for the city of Crooks for 13 years, I'm also speaking from the perspective of a subject matter expert. I hope you're all able to review the PowerPoint that I submitted detailing an accurate depiction of the current outside storage items viewed from the adjacent residential district and a depiction of the surface to which items are being stored on. So that did get distributed and everybody got an opportunity to review that. Also, I just had a question. I did not see a sign on the property for the five days of requirement for procedurally that the conditional use permit was being applied for. So I don't even know procedure if we should move forward, but they did not meet that standard either. So Dan and Kathy Richardson have constructed over $2 million worth of quality residential commercial structures on the southern corridor of Dell Rapids, 3 residential homes and 1 commercial building. They have painstakingly cared for the property for 30 years, and it would be a travesty for allow for how high impact outdoor storage to degrade their efforts and devalue their property. Imagine sitting on your deck, on your acreage, and the view in the distance is a sea of abandoned boats, buses, campers, trailers, and vehicles that the owners didn't care enough to store inside. That's not low impact. Would you allow this in your front or backyard? We have called Dell Rapids and Minnehaha County our home for over 50 years. Upon my return to Dell Rapids after 30 years, I've noticed a sharp decline in sightliness and zoning regulation enforcement in this area, most recently with the outdoor storage zoning infractions at most industrial sites in this area, but specifically at the airport location with the collection of outdoor storage items, including a plethora of salvage, yard-esque and operable vehicles in direct violation of the current zoning regulations. The southern corridor in Dell Rapids is riddled with unregulated, unsightly outdoor storage that not only devalues adjacent properties, but degrades the message of welcome to our community. My personal and professional opinion is that the conditional use permit 2502 submitted to the joint board should be immediately rejected, and efforts should be directed to ordinance compliance and enforcement of the current zoning ordinance in the industrial park for the betterment of the community. So the 2001 revised joint zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County and the city of Dell Rapids under 1.02 title and purpose states the regulations are intended to preserve and protect the existing property uses and values against adverse or unharmonious adjacent uses, and 7.01 light industrial district defines the intent to provide uses in an attractive industrial park-like setting. The most detrimental thing you can do in creating an attractive industrial park is to allow for and not enforce outdoor storage regulations. I would like to comment that the applicant said, well, and that basically that, actually Kevin, I think you said it, that the onus would be on the adjacent property owners to report infractions. I believe that should be on the property owner. They're obviously not in the area, they're in Flanders, so the onus should not be on us to report this. I want to make some additional comments on the allowed uses and why I feel you need to follow the ordinance better in place. So under light industrial, I do believe under light industrial it says retail, sale, trade, personal service, communication facility, and warehousing, which this is an extension of warehousing. You have an industrial area that has a bunch of storage units, and then now you have this outdoor storage unit that says there is no outside storage. So I believe you have this right in not allowing for outdoor storage. My 15 years of planning and zoning has led me to conclude that outdoor storage attracts thieves looking for an easy target, and it breeds salvage yard tendencies and is extremely time consuming for local planning and zoning boards to police and enforce, as evidenced by the vast zoning infractions
5
throughout the
minutes is
industrial
up.
park.
Your 5 minutes is up, sir.
No concessions for the other people, and I have documents. I can come up here separately.
You're allotted the 5 minutes just like anybody else would be, okay?
Okay. Am I allowed 5 minutes for a Nikki and Jeremy wager at a different address? I've got legal documents for letters of.
And what is that about?
That I'm representing them on their behalf because they can't be here.
Oh, I see. Okay. Are you going to hand them out? Is that what your intent is?
To hand out the letters that they.
Yes?
No, this is just a legal document giving me the ability to execute on their behalf.
No, I don't think that's necessary. We know that that's what you're doing because that's what you told us. That
Right.
you were acting for, because they're not here.
Right. So do I have five minutes to represent each one of those as if
No.
they were here? Really?
No. Anybody else in the audience care to address this item?
Somebody else want to finish reading my stuff for me? It's really good. Put a lot of work in.
Zach Kaplan, 24698 South Garfield. I'm right across from the property there. And then I have also a letter here from Neil and Jesse Hackett at 24696 South Garfield. And we oppose it just because of, like he said, he can rent it to a nice camper, but he can't do anything about what they do when they move that camper and put something else there. It's just gonna add a lot of complaints, and then you guys are just gonna be getting heard about it all the time, so I would like it to be opposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm first going to speak on my behalf. David Schmidt, 108 East 14th Street in Dell Rapids. I parked my trailers there not knowing it was zoned. But for me, it was a plus because I was building a house and I didn't have anywhere else to put my RV or my enclosed trailer. With that being said, the north end of the runway, if you look at the rut that's in the runway itself, that's basically the pavement being destroyed. A semi was on it. So how long is that runway actually going to go? So when the citizens basically say they're on an asphalt surface, it's basically a deteriorating grass surface. The second thing I'd like to say as part of the conditions, if you do approve it, you need to also add that every vehicle there has to be registered. And then the last part of it is, I'll speak on behalf of J&P Roofing, which has two properties within the zone, 601 East Quartzsite Street and 24654 475th Avenue. Their concern is twofold. One is the drainage coming off of that property, and there supposedly have been plans submitted for that. We saw what happened with the storage units further to the north that were approved, and we looked at their conditional uses. We didn't have any objection over them. But at the same time, the ordinances for stormwater, which the city of Delafield has their own ordinance and refuses to enforce and forces it onto the city, as well as for Minnehaha County, that property was allowed to go through and not have any stormwater ordinance. So all of their silt, when they did that, went onto our property. The reason we have concern about the stormwater from this property is this property also goes all the way down to JMP and then filters across the properties that have been done across the street. And I was eavesdropping on Mr. Hoff. He has concerns over that pipe not being taken care of under stormwater. I find that kind of interesting too, because there is no stormwater where that's been done, if we were talking about the same property. The other sideline that I'd like to point out is it's cheaper and easier to park on Dell Rapids streets because they don't enforce their 24-hour ordinances on trailers. And there's over a dozen trailers that I can count, which I brought to the board on numerous occasions. So what I'm saying here is basically I am for it. The only additional charge that I'd like to have added to the, if it's approved, is that was designated as an airstrip. Being designated as an airstrip, it's an industrial area now, no longer designated as an airstrip. It was designated that way for the property owner's benefit. It needs to be redesignated as industry, and that property owner should have to go through whatever it needs to do to remove whatever height restrictions that they have due to the airport. Basically, the airport designation there is still withstanding, and you're unable, not only on that property, but a distance on each side of it as restricted airspace. I'd like to see that opened up for the public venue. Any questions, concerns?
Any questions for him? Thank you. Anyone else in the audience care to address this item before I close the floor?
Hi, my name is Nikki Harrington. We live at 24681 475th Avenue, Del Rapids. We are directly across the street. It does look really bad. I took pictures on Friday, and there are a lot of vehicles that will not move. That being said, I figure they have about 100 vehicles, and if you charge $30 a month, I wish I would have thought of it, because that's a lot of income when you don't have to do anything. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the floor. Commissioners?
Madam Chair, I have a question for Kevin.
Sure.
Kevin, on item number 3, when you say all vehicles, campers, and trailers are stored on the property must be fully operational and intact, does that also include licensing? Because I know on some of our other stuff, they have to be licensed.
So the way that is worded, if you would like them to be licensed, it should be included in that. So you should add that if you would like them to be licensed.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for him? Thank you. Commissioners?
Well, Madam Chair, I guess my first impression, willing to hear out my colleagues here, I feel like this has more of a semblance of a declaration of a public nuisance hearing than a conditional use permit. I think we seem to be rallying around the same issues, is the unsightliness, and I think we're probably going to have to come back to this one way or the other, whether we deny this and then we have to enforce the lack of compliance, or we approve this and we have to enforce the lack of compliance. Or best case scenario, we approve it and there is good compliance. I guess that's a scenario as well. But I tend to think this would come back before us if it's unsatisfactory to those neighbors. I guess just following that line of logic, though, I'm kind of inclined to approve it, possibly as my new colleague, Commissioner Heiberger, alluded to, with maybe some additional conditions, or to press those forward of what we think would be in compliance here, and then let the enforcement and possibly a hearing to withdraw the conditional use permit at a later time and go down that enforcement route. But that's just kind of where my head is at with it. I'm open to just other thought processes from any of my colleagues.
Any comments? Mike?
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I do feel for both parties here. We have a situation where we want to call industrial, light business, is directly abutting residential, and that at times creates some friction, and understandably so. I guess knowing also that there are some existing storage units to the north, tells me maybe this isn't appropriate land use. However, I think that we need to be cognizant, I guess, of the current, I don't want to say disarray, and it sounds like there's been some improvements there. I guess that with that said, similar to Joe, my mind is to approve it such that there can be enforcement. I guess I do like the idea of adding an additional stipulation to item 3, which being the vehicles must be registered. I guess that's where my thoughts are at this point. So
Anyone else? Go ahead, Cindy.
I'm new to this board.
I know, but
I did bring up the licensure because I think that's probably a good idea, because then you're going to have running vehicles, obviously, but you're also not going to have somebody who's going to store a vehicle there for 6 years and never do anything and just go out there and start it and make sure it starts. So you would have newer vehicles. Kevin, you brought up that ag equipment in the corner. If this is approved, that should probably be added on there. I don't, or maybe I should defer to my Del Rapids colleagues that say, you know, what, you know that spot better than I do about ag property sitting there for years. If it's been there, then it should probably be in there. If it was an ag land, you can leave your property there. So I would defer that to you guys to make that decision instead of me, because I haven't been there and looked at it. I think I'm a little inclined to approve it, but to give a deadline in approval right now that would say this needs to be, these conditions need to be met by such and such a time, or it's going to go back to the commission for a hearing on nuisance of the property that's in non-compliance. But you need to give a reasonable amount of time. I mean, we've been lucky with all this great weather, but if you have 10 inches of snow, it's kind of hard. I mean, you could get stuff out right now. I think those are my thoughts right now.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess I'll consider a motion.
I guess, Madam Chair, can we first make a motion to amend the list of conditions to add that the vehicles must be registered as well as fully operational and intact for condition number 3.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Okay.
I can second that motion.
I have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion on that? Number 3? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
And then, Madam Chair, that was just to amend. Should we look for a motion for final disposition here? I'd make a motion to approve with the 10 conditions as amended. Oh, did we?
We didn't address that.
Yes, Madam Chair, we want to talk about ag real quick. I mean, in my mind, well, I appreciate the fact that maybe you could say it's grandfathered in. In an effort to be a good neighbor, I guess I think that maybe we should just have them come to compliance, carte blanche. So there's not an argument or dispute that, well, that piece of equipment wasn't there 10 years ago, it was only there 2 years ago, and how that enforcement would occur. I think that maybe we just ask them to kind of bring everything up to a more sightly manner for the neighbors. So I guess with that, I would
Add as an 11th condition?
no, say just leave it as is, and they'll have to
Okay, I follow you.
relocate the equipment.
Then my motion is to approve with this set of 10 conditions as amended.
I second.
I have a motion and a second on the floor for conditional use permit 2502. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes on the county side.
Can we add on there? I guess I have a concern. I think the neighborhood, they have a valid concern with becoming, Mr. Kipley, as you said, kind of a nuisance, public nuisance. Can we, if we do approve this, can we add something on that would say within 90 days or, 6 months, those vehicles that are not licensed, those vehicles that are not operable, that they have to be removed, or that it comes back to us for further consideration? I know you already passed, you voted on that, but.
Scott?
So, Madam Chairman, Scott Anderson, Planning Director. I think maybe in this situation, it would not be, I think it might be wise to set a date, and you're going to have to probably revise your adoption, but I think maybe the most prudent thing to do would be set a date, let's say by July 1st, and that staff would go out, do a review of the property to make sure it's in complete compliance. And if you'd like, we could come back and report, but that would mean that you would need to come down here for a meeting. But it's up to you. You could add a condition, Mr. Klein or Commissioner Klein, that the entire property be brought into compliance with no junk vehicles or no abandoned vehicles by July 1st, whatever date you'd like. Given the fact that we've had a mild winter, but you don't know how long that's going to last either, so.
Questions, comments, either of you?
No, I would agree with, looking at this, it's really tough. I know with the looks of it and everything, but it is an I-1 industrial, so that's part of the concern. Like you said, it's adjacent to it. We have acreages on one side and light industrial on the other. I would say, I'm fine with it. I was thinking June 1st, but I'm fine with the July 1st, that this site has to be in compliance, and if there's not, then I guess you tell us what the direction is on that, but I would like that added, that per 3, that has to be met by, I'm okay with the July 1.
And then who would make that decision, or who would do that inspection or whatever?
So our staff would do the inspection, and if it does not meet if it doesn't meet the July 1st deadline, we would put it on the July Planning Commission meeting for a recall hearing, and that would bring them back before this board to reconsider the conditional use permit.
So I guess my motion would be, along with the county, the addition to item 3 for that they need to be registered. I also have a condition, I don't know if it's item 3 or if it's 11, that they must be in compliance by July 1, 2025. Make it 11, okay.
Condition number 11.
So it would be an additional requirement, number 11, for must be in compliance by July 1st, 2025.
I'll second that. And do they need to redo theirs
So
or not?
We will have to redo.
I would
Oh, after ours?
Yeah, after you take a
You're done.
vote, then
Okay.
they can,
We'll go back.
then they can ratify what you've just taken action on with a motion.
Okay.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to approve with the additional conditions of the registered vehicles and requirement that they be in compliance by July 1, 2025. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Motion carries.
So, Madam Chairman, you'll need a motion to reconsider the conditional use permit, the action on the conditional use permit, in a second, and take a vote on that. If the vote is positive, then you would need to have a motion to adopt it with the same conditions, the condition number, adding a condition number 11.
All right,
Madam Chair, motion to reconsider.
okay.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
I'll make the motion to concur with our colleagues from Dell Rapids and approve with the same conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve conditional use permit 25-02 with the 11 conditions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Move on to item number 6, conditional use permit 25-08 to allow outdoor industrial storage on the property legally described as Lot B, subdivision of Lot 11 of Kennefic subdivision, East Half, Section 16, Township 104 North, Range 49 West, Del Rapids Township. Petitioner is Roberta Letman. Property owner is R.J. Welberg LLC, and it's located at 24666 475th Avenue. Kevin?
Hello, so conditional use permit number 2508 is related to the last permit. Same application, and it's a property just to the north a little bit. Being it's a separate property, we asked to have a separate permit for this conditional use permit. Because these are so similar, I guess the difference is that this is completely accessible from the state highway only. It does have the existing building there that is being actively used as like office space type of use. Staff is recommending approval of this with 9 conditions. I would bring up the condition number 3 is the old condition that was changed, all vehicles, campers, trailers stored on the property shall be fully operational and intact. So if you change it on the one, you can change it on this one, it'd be a recommendation. But other than that, the situation is very similar. This building has been there for quite some time, and the storage would be located basically along this back fence. I'll bring up a couple photos. So there's the building, kind of towards the parking there. There's the storage along the back fence, plus the storage on the neighboring property you can see there on the other side of the fence. And then that would be looking down the highway there. So I'll bring up the map, and I guess I'll finish my presentation with that, with the recommendation of approval.
Anyone have any questions for him? Go ahead.
You had talked about on the previous conditional use with regards to access must be maintained coming off of 115. Is that the access that goes into that property, or is there a separate access?
For the previous property, no, this access right here is only for this
Okay.
property. The other access is further south.
Anyone else? Thank you. Is the petitioner here for this one? Please state your name again, sir, and your address.
Gary Lutman, 47304, 225th Street, Flanders, South Dakota. I guess I have no additional comments other than what I said before. This property is a little bit different, just a couple, I think there's 4 or 5 campers on there.
Anyone have any questions for him? Thank you. Anyone for the audience care to address this item? Commissioners?
Madam Chair,
Sydney?
I would suggest that we add on here the same last condition that we put on, it would be number 10 on here, but to put it on number 11, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but it should be that it's in compliance, that they're registered vehicles, and just that you would look. That's my only thought. Is that reasonable, Scott? Okay. So, no, it'd be, number 3 to make it registered vehicle, and then make a condition number 10, that would be saying that it's in compliance by that July 1st of 2025.
I would second that motion.
Okay, the motion.
I have a motion and a second on conditional use permit 25-08 to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes on the county side.
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
Yeah, I'll motion to approve with the changes mentioned.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same. Motion carries.
Any old business? New business? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes on the county side.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I'm getting all carried away.